your assistant, Greg, we like him, we really
Oh,
like
yeah,
him.
that's right, yeah. He's too tired, it's too late at night for him.
It's a long road.
Yeah.
Second hit, and then it goes, and then.
To my immediate right is Assemblyman Billy Jones. To his right is Tom Haynes with Dank Development Authority of the North Country. To his right is Alec Battencourt with DEC, or with Health out of Albany. And of course, to my left, far left is Mark Robillard, and to my immediate left is Ian Yurden with C2A, our consulting firm. So after our last meeting, I reached out to the Assemblyman and the Senator, and they said certainly they'd be up here as soon as we could get them out of session. Session's over. Billy called me, said, give me a date, the Senator, so they're here. I want them to hear. I have explained to them what we've been doing. Starting in 2008, you don't want to hear the story, you know it, and it's a long story of how we went from the lake to the wells, and how things went good for about a year and a half. And then we started getting iron in the wells. And the issue is, do we put an iron filtration plant at the wells, or do we go back to the lake? And it's about the same cost, but there's not a guarantee that there's going to be enough water in those 3 wells to service the village and the water source that we need. We use about 1 million gallons of water a day. So we've decided to go back to the lake. That means that we have to do a series of testings from the lake, and at the same time we're looking for a way to eliminate the brown in the water, which is most prevalent down in the west end of the community. Everybody's water is blended. If you live on Racket River Drive, or if you live on Washington Street or Wabeek Ave, it's blended water, but there's more well water that comes in down the junction area than there is uptown. And I've explained everything to the Assemblyman and the Senator. And the 3 things that I'm after is, number 1, we're going to need more money to do this. We've got $5 million right now. This project is going to cost about $9 million. So we're going to need some money from the Assemblyman and the Senator, and maybe the Congresswoman too. Number 2, try and find ways with help from Health and from the Assemblyman and the Senator's offices to expedite the sampling process that Mark and his people do every day. You have to do it for so many days in a row to make sure that we get the right plant on the lake, that we put chlorine in the water to eliminate surface bacteria. But chlorine reacts, and Health can explain it better, but this is a simpleton's answer, that's me, is that the chlorine creates another chemical that's not good if you drink a lot of the water. So we're trying to figure the right plant to put up there. And that's what C2AE does, along with Mark. We do the samplings every day, and we send it to Health. And I think before everybody, and listen, when you come up, we've got a microphone right here. Come up so everybody can hear your questions. And I know that Billy wants to hear what you got to say. He's heard me, and I think he's sick of hearing me. So he and Dan Steck know what we're after. Money, expedite the process so that we can get that plant started on the lake. And there's Senator Steck. Hi, Senator. So we'll let him come down and we'll move on here. He has heard the whole story, just like I told you, but he's heard it in detail. And I did. No problem. We just started. So we've introduced everybody. C2E, our engineering firm, Mark Robillard, our head of water. Dank is right, and Health. So I told them the 3 things we're looking for in a nutshell is money. We've discussed this. We're looking for expedited ways to get that plant going on the Big Lake. And some way with Health and with our engineers to come up with a new blend of phosphorus until we get the new plant down from the wells, because the wells, the iron from the wells is causing, we have some great photos here of the damage it is causing and the color, and it's hard to deal with. And I know people are upset with me because they think that we're dragging our feet, but we're doing everything that's required. And we did everything that was required before with the wells, and now we're looking for that. So I know you guys may want to say something, or do you want to hear first and then say, or whatever you want to do?
Does this work? Well, there's a lot of stuff here, and I don't understand half these words on this page anyway. So I guess I have a few questions. You talked about the blend. Now, what does that mean? When you blend, do you put an agent in with this water?
When we're talking about blend, we're talking about well water from the wells.
Yes.
And water from Little Simon Pond where we have a filtration plant.
Okay.
It's blended. It's nothing to do with the chemical.
Okay. All right. So you have to do that.
So that we have enough water.
Okay.
Just like 2 water supplies. Correct.
And it's to $1 million gallons.
So the source of this contamination is from the wells. Yeah. Okay.
Again, my apologies, I was a little late today. Early day, all the way to Ogdensburg and trying to do everything. Sorry I'm late. But as Paul mentioned, he made it very clear, those are the 3, things, the big takeaways I think he wants from me, Billy, and obviously DOH is funding to make whatever change is going to happen affordable. Number 2, whether that meets health standard specs or not. If I'm you, I don't want to wash my clothes in that. I don't want to drink that either. I get it. I think we all get it. So we don't want to let that linger any longer than it already has. So we want to make sure that there's no needless bureaucracy getting in the way. We understand that. And then obviously in the interim, because whether it's another month of this or 6 months of this or 10 months before, or 12 months before you have a final implemented solution, what are we going to do in the meantime? And I think that's what Paul's talking about with that agent that could get added at the wells to kind of prevent the iron issue from happening. So Paul's done a good job, I think, briefing Billy and I separately on this, and we want to hear from you. But I mean, if what are you hoping that we're going to take away from that? Paul's already told me that's what he wants us to take away from it, and we'll do what we can to facilitate at the state level, helping find additional funding to lighten the cost of the community, and then obviously the timelines, bureaucracies, especially large bureaucracies involving matters of health. As we all know, the whole country's experienced that the last few years, can be very cumbersome and frustrating and slow sometimes. And that's not to say that with effort from me, Billy, your local officials, and then obviously our local representation from Albany, DOH that's up here, understanding the problem, how it's affecting people, so that we, again, don't let this linger on the vine. It's not going to age well, and it's been going on longer than Billy and I have been aware. So, we're here to listen to you tonight, but just want you to know that's my mindset coming into the meeting.
Okay, and one last thing. At the last meeting, there was a question about meters. And I know that these gentlemen on my far right can answer that, but we had no choice. If we went to the lake or if we went to the wells, the department would make us put meters in the houses, even though we don't charge it. And I know some people out there don't believe me. With the rate that we're getting for water, we have no problems in paying down the debt that we have now on the wells and running Mark's operation. So, with that, who would like to come up first? I mean, don't be bashful because come on up, Patty. Just give us your name so we can record it. I know your name, but I won't remember everybody's.
My name is Patty Nichols, and I have actually a few questions or concerns. One of them is the interim that you were talking about in the chemical. I understand from what I read, there's phosphorus is being talked about as the chemical to add in the interim. What I'm thinking about in the interim is to give everyone drinking water, because everyone is paying for water or paying for filtration systems that don't even work. You know, the filters are getting clogged up immediately. So, and I think Paul had mentioned at the last meeting, one of the issues with that was with the Department of Health, because we're being told that the water is safe to drink, that we probably wouldn't get any funding to pay for water for those of us who wouldn't drink that if there was no other water to drink. So that's one question. Would you like me to say?
So you would like, I mean, in other communities this has happened where they've set up, Department of Homeland Security actually owns tankers that come in and they set up, so that's what you're looking for in the interim?
I don't
Okay,
know
just
the
so,
specifics.
okay. Yeah, I wouldn't want to drink orange water either, I understand. I have a question, if you don't mind as well. The agent that you're putting in there in the interim to get rid of this color, this is probably a question for DOH. What is that, and how does that make the water not orange, I guess?
So I believe,
And I don't mean to take up your time, but I just...
Please slide that microphone over. The bigger one.
I believe the agent in question was phosphorus. Some chemical additives to water have the ability to basically sequestrate the iron from the water and reduce the levels at the tap. This is the first time I've heard with this project of adding phosphorus to the water. It hasn't been presented to the Department of Health before now. So this is something I will
I didn't
go
start
and look
anything.
back and see. Typically,
Yeah.
once it's proposed, we will review and see if it's acceptable for, like, if it will work in the system or whatnot. But we haven't quite reviewed any plans to add phosphorus into the water to
That's a little
sequester
scary in
the iron.
itself.
Many communities use iron sequestering chemicals. It's a practice, but we just have not reviewed it for this community in general.
So my other question is, and it just left me.
While you're thinking of that, you guys give me the answer on the phosphorus.
Yeah, so I think, from what I'm aware, the health department, the regional health department representative, has coordinated with the village in regards to the potential for adding phosphorus to the water. I believe there's still sampling that's taking place that the village is undertaking of the well water currently to understand, whether or not that's going to be a viable solution. I know Mark's group has been, that sampling has been ongoing, and so, it's still certainly being evaluated as an option for, as Alec mentioned, sequestering the iron from the current supply.
My other question is the iron in our water. Supposedly, we're being told by the Department of Health that it's healthy to drink, it's okay to drink. But, I mean, there's conditions, with too much iron in our water. I don't know what the data is to support, how much is too much or anything like that, but it is a concern. Like right now, I'm waiting for my grandson to be born, like any day now. And this whole thing is terrifying to think that that little guy is going to be getting this disgusting water and he's going to be bathed in it. The whole thing is just overwhelming. Yeah. So those are my questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Who's next?
Well, I was just, while the next person's coming to the microphone, I was gonna ask, Paul, how intermittent is this problem been? Like, Paul described it as, it's not always the same tap in the same part of town, or how frequently, again, if it's once a year, and it's me, I'm upset, so I'm not, but I'm just trying to get my head around, is it, how many of the 2,200 water customers, how many of them have ever experienced it, and then are some of them, do they tend to experience it the same customers over and over again, or is it jumping all over town?
Maybe a third of the community of the 2,200 are being affected.
All right, that-
Definitely the lower part of town, the junction.
Closer to us.
Correct. And like, my neighborhood may not have it, one block over may get it. Why, I don't know, maybe the age of the pipe. You know, maybe the older the pipe, you can pull that corrosion more, the iron more. With already corrosion already being in the pipe.
Is there a time of year where it seems worse, or I'm just trying to.
Not really, not really.
I don't see any patterns.
No, not really. No.
Pretty much every day. Yeah.
Some every day.
I'm washing it every day.
The well went online in 2018.
But the iron is not the only problem. Right. We've been following tests for years. I would love to know what the last time we passed was.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say what? So with phosphorus, is it gonna be recycled back into the lake? Because if so, we're gonna have an algae bloom problem, which is gonna cause dead zones, a bunch of death in the thing, and swimming problems. It's happening like.
I mean, ultimately, you know, if the phosphorus is going to enter the wastewater system, then it'll be treated at the wastewater treatment plant.
So it's not gonna go back in the lake?
It'll be treated prior to discharge into the lake.
All the water customers are on a public sewer system, or is there any that's in separate?
I believe they're all sewer. Maybe a small amount that are not, but the majority are.
So the majority will go to the treatment.
Right, rather be treated, chlorinated, dechlorinated.
Because that's a very good point. Phosphorus loading leads to algal bloom, sure.
If I may add to that, DEC, who's not present at the meeting at the moment, they would typically regulate any new discharge containing phosphorus too, so that would go through a review by them just to make sure that the lake is not receiving dangerous amounts of phosphorus. And if I may add to my previous answer regarding phosphorus, regarding me not being able to have the chance to review the addition of phosphorus into the water, that may not have just reached my desk yet. I understand this is a relatively new thing, so I will, if one a section comes to my desk, I will review it and make sure it goes through the get the official go ahead for it. But currently, I just have not heard about it at my desk in Albany, which is quite far. So the local health department's very good at.
What's the timeline?
As soon as we can.
So what's the timeline?
We have a lot of good engineers working. You know, this project is an absolute priority for us. We're working hard. Anything that comes in is scheduled for immediate review. So I unfortunately don't have it to review right now, but as soon as I get it, I can likely turn it around very quickly. That's arbitrary, but it's the best I can give at this moment.
I have a question for the Department of Health. All these years, we've been getting these papers in the mail. 4 times a year, maybe? There's a paragraph in there, and it has all these chemicals and the exact words, if people drink this with these chemicals in it over a certain amount of time, it may cause cancer. Our kids, my grandchildren, are 21 and 22 years old. They've been drinking this water for years. Do they have cancer? Do they have the possibility of having cancer? Does her new grandchild have the possibility of getting cancer because we have been drinking this water for all these years?
Okay. I appreciate the question and I understand what you're asking. I typically focus on the technical review side of things, and while I'm unsure of the contents of that letter myself, because I recently signed to this project, the main chemicals that are in that letter are the trihalomethanes and the haloacetic acids, which are disinfectant byproducts, and you're probably sick of reading those nasty chemical names over and over again. Those levels over long periods of time do present elevated risks of cancer. That is an issue. known by the state regulators and the EPA as well. And so we issue violations to the water supply to note them that there are currently levels in the water that are in exceedance of our standards, and to correct them as soon as possible. And that is the purpose of these projects, of the new filter plant. That was the purpose of the wells, which unfortunately, as you know very well, started drawing iron after a year and a half. And so we're hoping with this new filter plant that any disinfection byproducts, the probability of them forming, I almost guarantee that with proper operation, there will be no disinfection byproduct in the water supply, and we have monitoring programs in place for that, and they will be put in place for the new system. But for now, as far it is a very long-term risk, and I'm not going to make comments outside of my jurisdiction here, but I would not think that unless it's a very continued exposure to it, there would be much risk.
We've had exposure to it for quite a while. We've been getting those papers in our mailboxes for quite a while.
I understand. If I can get back to the community as general and maybe provide some fact sheets with further information on those chemicals and the potential effects of them, I will send those out. I will get them where they need to go so they can be distributed to the community. I understand that there is significant, to say the least, concern about leaks in your drinking water supply. So I can do my best to provide the proper documents to you and proper information to learn more about these chemicals and how they can affect you.
So we keep paying for our water when we can't bathe in it or drink it.
We have to run a plant, we have to pay for these guys' salaries, not I, the village does, and all I can tell you is, we're trying to do the best we can.
Not to mention, we're paying for all the bottled water that we have to drink because we can't drink the water here. We buy water by the pallets to try to get it as cheap as possible. We just paid $460 for a pallet of water. I drink 100 ounces of water. I don't know how much water you guys drink in a day, but if I was drinking the Tupper water, I'd probably be dead. I drink 100 ounces every day that I am buying on top of paying for water.
Then you gotta filter
Where's
your
the
house,
compensation?
so it doesn't ruin your hot water heater, your washing machine, your clothes, your refrigerator, all that stuff that it
We're
goes
paying
through.
for water that we can't use, and we're not getting water supplied to us to help us.
So we're still paying for more water that we can use.
So we pray that there's gonna be funding so that we don't have more money out of our pockets on top of the money we pay and all these other things that we're paying out of pocket on top of our tax-paying money.
And those chemicals are absorbed into your skin also when you shower.
Yeah.
Oh, people have rashes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Cindy Sweet, 127 Main Street. I just want to say that the chlorination process to rectify the system or the water, the chlorine is not good. My husband has stage 5 COPD, and chlorine is very obvious when you shower, when you do laundry. There is rust in the laundry. You can taste it when you make coffee, tea. We don't use it, we buy bottled water. We don't even give it to the cat because of the chlorine stuff. So the byproducts that are in the water, and whether you can drink it or not, you can't do your laundry the way my mother taught me. There's rust in it. And I just question, I don't understand everything, but common sense is not as important as our drinking water. And people have installed residential reverse osmosis systems, and there are municipalities that have reverse osmosis systems. So I just question where the priorities are. It never used to be like this. I grew up here all my life. We never had a problem. I understand the demand. However, with today's technology and New York State Department of Health just finding out, and we haven't received, I don't know, the last notice as far as the byproducts and the chemicals. And it was Greek to me. I'm not a chemist or a scientist, but it says in black and white, it is not healthy. And you can, if you are sensitive to certain things, not even shower with it. What are we supposed to do? Go swimming naked in the lake?
Yes, next up.
Hi, Tammy Demer. I think one of the questions that I really had, I hear everything that you're saying, the 2-year process, it's gonna take time. I think like everybody else, the interim of the impact of every single household from here until then, of what will happen. We spoke last time at the other meeting, past 5 years, I've already had to replace my hot water here twice. The back of the tanks of the toilets are corroding, those are getting replaced. My dishwasher's been replaced. So this is a lot of money. This is just one household. This is happening to everybody who's affected in this with the grass. It's corroding everything. Add on that, once a week, we make a trip to the spring, get spring water, fill up our 5-gallon buckets. We have a lot of elderly people in this town who can't do that, who can't go to this place. Even if there is something in place, like here's a spot where we're gonna set up that you mentioned, they can't get there. So it's one of those things to consider, what are we gonna do? People in Don Smith's are elderly housing units, water would have to be brought to them. It's not just having them go and find it themselves. So it's a bigger picture on who this is infecting and how we can get them to clean water, not just, and it's an expense to every single household. You're talking funding for this project. Is there anything out there for funding to supplement what people are already taking out of their pockets? Because we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per household right now. Per house. So that's,
If I could ask the engineers, how long might it take to implement the phosphorus interim, interim fix? Before they, to implement, before they see results?
I would think relatively soon. Again, not being directly, C2AE hasn't been directly involved in that process to date. That's been something that the health department has been working on directly with the village. Again, I know that there's been sampling that's been ongoing. There's been coordination between the Department of Health and the village, and so I would think relatively soon. But we could certainly, follow up after this meeting and see if we can get a more definitive timetable on when exactly that, chemical could start being added to see if it's, gonna have a positive effect. Obviously, we wanna check the water chemistry first and go through the preliminary steps to evaluate whether or not, it's even worth the process. So yeah, I think, some follow-up between some of the agencies after this meeting, we should be able to get a more definitive answer.
If I can just throw one more thing, when you're adding the phosphorus to
water's tested every day.
Now, is there testing to already show that phosphorus won't have a byproduct?
Yes.
Senator, I have to apologize for Tupper Lake. We have our own website about this water problem, and within 2 days, we had over 400 people join. We have 571 now. I understand that people have to work. I just don't understand why this place is not packed, because this town is very concerned about this.
Let me address that real quick. I mean, I was a town supervisor for 9 years. Assemblyman Jones was a village mayor for many years. We've been at meetings like this in our communities before as mayors. You're welcome to, I'll speak on behalf of the mayor here, he'll kick me later. You're welcome to bring 500 people here. I don't need 500 people here to know that this is a significant issue that's affecting 2,200 people. Maybe the closer you are to the wells, the more frequent or more severe the problem is, where if you're farther away, the issue tends to be more the chlorine concern. But I mean, I did a quick count, there's about 75, 80 people here. That's a strong enough message for me, and I'm sure for the mayor and everyone in the village, that, I mean, the mayor, I've had many conversations with him. He's aware of the issue, he's frustrated, he wants to get this resolved too. And like I said, whether DOH is saying that the iron, the brown color is acceptable, as far as safety, if I'm you, I don't want that in my house, I don't want to drink that either. So you don't, bringing more, it's just make a longer meeting, and more is welcome, that's our democracy, but don't apologize at all. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this is a very important issue in the village, and I know that everyone up here fully understands that. We're here because we want to try to get something improved. But thank you.
At what point were you made aware of this situation?
I'm sorry?
At what point were you made aware of this situation?
I don't remember, months ago.
Not years, months.
Why?
Craft River Brewery's first out of line down there, and they brew the beer with it.
That, you know what, but, I mean, and that's, the iron in the raw water, is that a consistent level? Paul was describing that, sometimes you can get a sample and it'll be crystal clear, or one house will have a problem one day and then another house. But is the raw water, is that iron level consistent? What would cause it to go? Just where it's drawing the water from?
Just subsurface conditions.
Should I ask just a question about the question the lady posed about the warnings? So if I'm getting this correctly, you went from the lake to the wells, correct?
Yes.
And then the wells started getting corroded, whatever, drying the iron out. But when were the warnings? I mean, it seems as though the warnings came when it was coming. Before the wells. No, but before the wells and the wells? No, that's where I'm getting confused.
The warnings are from the lake. The lake and from Little Simon Pond. When you put chlorine in with open source water, it creates that other issue.
So,
And that's what the warnings are for.
yeah, so the wells that were installed in 2018, they don't have enough capacity to provide water to the entire village system. Okay, so what the village ultimately has to do is they have to blend that water with an older filtration plant, the Little Simon Pond plant, in order to provide enough capacity to the village and the town users. And that filtration plant is still using older technology, in which the organics that come from Little Simon Pond are not being, properly filtered at times, and that's what's causing the issue on that end. So you really got two issues. You got, iron coming from the wells, and then you've got, the organic levels that are coming from the Little Simon Pond plant. The original intent, was we were gonna put the wells online and decommission the Little Simon Pond plant, okay? And then, we started seeing iron, and, ultimately we had to change course and come up with a new plan. And so that's, essentially what we're trying to do, what we've been working on for the past year or so, since the iron concentrations started to increase from the wells.
Is the intake on Little Simon damaged?
No.
It's been repaired, but it used to be damaged. I thought I heard that in a meeting one time. It was sitting on the bottom of the lake. I actually have that meeting recorded. It was sitting on the bottom of the lake, but it needed to be raised up because it was sitting lower. It was drowning
Yeah,
in
we
the
actually
mud.
had a diver go down and find out that it didn't drop down to the bottom of the lake when they thought.
Okay, so anyways, I heard that in a meeting, so now that was been cleared up.
We
Thank
had
you.
Atlantic underwater, diver go down in there. We got a video of it at the shop.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you.
Can you, somebody up there answer a question for me that, this site that we have on Facebook was started by these two people. And nothing, there was no big deal about it until everything went on Facebook, and then people started saying, well, I know this and my water this and my water that, and my kids bathe in this, and I've been drinking this because I can't afford bottled water. If these two wouldn't have started this on Facebook, would you guys be here? Would you know anything about this, our problem? Would you be helping us?
I'm here because the mayor said, Dan, I got a problem. Would you be willing to come and say the state is gonna do everything that they can to help the village? And, you know, like, Billy can speak for himself, but I know Billy's hard on these things. We're both local government people. And, you know, we know what it's like to run a local municipality. The mayor says, hey, I've got a problem. I need your help finding funding for the solution, making sure that there's no unnecessary bureaucracy. And our public is concerned and frustrated, and I've been talking to them, but you know, they need reassurances that the state is aware. I mean, I don't think unless Governor Hochul walked in right now, I don't think the state can be any more aware than it is right now. You got DOH here, the village is represented, and your two legislators. But I'm here not because I saw it on Facebook. I'm here because the village mayor said, Dan, I'd like you to participate.
It's the mayor, this is for you, Mr.
Yes.
Maroon. Did you call them and get this thing going because of these people that are so concerned right now?
This thing has been going on for about as long as I've been mayor.
Well, why weren't you helping us
We
then?
have been working on it, trying to get the new plants, and I told you people
Since
this.
2008.
I told you, I wasn't here in 2008.
Well, you've been here for quite a long way after that.
Yes, and we've been
How come
working,
you haven't been supplying us with water and helping us then?
we work on it every day.
We are still drinking the dirty water though. Why didn't you get a hold of them and say, hey, this town, we have a really big problem here years ago when you knew we had a problem? Why didn't you say, okay, people from Tupper Lake, I work for you and I'm gonna take care of you and I'm gonna get them to supply you with water? Why has it been going on that people are still drinking it and bathing in it, and our children are growing up in this water? Why wasn't something done before this last month?
It's not this last month. I say that, but we've been working on this diligently, trying to come up with solutions.
Well,
And
why
we
didn't
work
you
with
get
the
us
health
water to
department.
drink?
And what's that?
Why didn't you supply us with water to drink when you knew we had this problem?
Not everywhere in this community has the same problem.
Well,
And
the one that's
we are trying to solve it. And
Well,
that's
why
all I
didn't
can
you
tell
help us before today?
We've been working on trying to help you for 13 years.
Okay, 13 years.
so long.
It's
Go ahead.
It's a moot
Sir.
point, let's go forward and
Yes,
fix
sir.
the
Hey, gentlemen.
problem.
My name's Terry Miller. First of all, thank you for coming and listening to our concern. I would like to know your position. I didn't hear what your name is and your title.
Yeah, my name is Ian Yurden. I'm a project manager with C2AE. We are the consulting engineers for the village of Tupper Lake.
So,
Ian Yurden? Yes.
Ian, you were in charge of constructing or drilling for the new wells, correct?
We were the design engineer for the wells, yes.
Okay. Mayor, I'm kind of behind the eight ball because and stuff. I should have went to a board meeting, okay, and voiced my concerns, okay? I'm kind of passive, but I'm anymore fed up with this water, okay? What I don't understand is, you got a grant for this well to be drilled?
We got some grant money, yes. Not all of it, but some, yes.
Okay, so do you know the figures of how much that was?
Mary,
It's $3 million.
I think it was $3 million, and you're paying the rest off with user fees.
But now we've got an additional $4.8 million, a WIA grant to go back to the lake, plus a $200,000 DOH grant. So we have $5 million to go back to the lake.
Okay, so when you.
Which has been ongoing for several years. You know, the initial application process, we got the award last October for the 4.8, and then the 200 came in December. And now we're at the point we have finished the preliminary engineering report, which Ian did, because he said we definitely want to go back to the lake. And now we have to get approval from the Department of Health on what filtration process we need to go back to the lake to give you quality water. Once that gets approved, then the engineers will design a new plant, which will have to be designed, bid, award, and then construct. And that process is a 2-year process.
So we're not drinking
More than
any
2 years.
time.
Yeah, that's the purpose of this meeting, to find it for.
So when you drill the wells, okay, of having the water coming out, so there wasn't anything in the budget for filtering process when the water was coming out of these wells?
So when we originally started the design of the wells back in 2014, 2015, we hired a very reputable expert hydrogeologist who did a number of tests and test wells at the current well site. All of those tests did not indicate the presence of iron in the wells. The wells went online in 2018. They ran for 18 months. We didn't have any issues. All of a sudden one day, we started seeing iron, come to the wells. So, is there the possibility to filter the iron out of the wells? Yes. The cost of that is very expensive, and so, the cost of going back to the lake versus filtering the iron from the wells is comparable. And ultimately, the village made a determination that they wanted to pursue going back to the lake, and so that's where we're at today.
So my question to you is, you drilled at the base of a mountain called
Iron Mountain, yes.
This is your company now.
It's not my company. Again, as I mentioned, we hired a hydrogeologist subconsultant who,
They gave you the wrong information, per se.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, again, the water ran clean for 18 months, and so something obviously changed with the subsurface conditions. It was an unforeseen condition. I don't know how anybody could have ever predicted that was going to take place.
But
The mountain.
during this transition, or how come there is no filtration put into when you're doing this?
Because
I
there
don't
was
care
no
if you're
need-
getting out of the
because
lake, you're gonna filter it, right? I don't care if it's coming out of your water.
There was no need to filter the water at the time that we initially put the wells online. The water was clean.
Why did we put the wells online when there wasn't enough water for the town anyway? Where was the?
There was always there was
That you had to go back
If
and
you-
sign it.
Anyway, at the time, we only had to have enough water to shut the Tupper Lake plant off, which the well did that. The old Tupper Lake plant,
Yeah.
at the time, we believed the byproduct issue came from that plant. We were pretty sure of it, and that came from DOH. They were sure of it too. We shut that off, we drilled the well to eliminate that byproduct, the one that Jill mentioned.
Okay.
We were great for a year. We pumped that well for 1 month, a lot longer than what DOH required when we were developing. Longer than a month and a half, I forget. But they only require it for like a month. We pumped it for a month and a half to make sure. No iron detected, nothing. They didn't require filtration for groundwater, we put it online. We did everything that DOH wanted, followed every guideline, perfect.
So DOH, you're saying to me, doesn't require filtering the
Correct,
water?
correct, Terry.
And
We
why
followed
is that?
every DOH guideline to a T when we developed that well, everything.
My question
Okay, let me document it.
my question was.
We've got a gentleman down here that's asking, and you come next. We want you to have the mic, please.
It's my husband.
Well, I know. Well, then come down with it. Come down.
And we were told to leave the
It's
faucets
easier,
running.
they can't, not everybody can.
And you're.
Let me just voice my concern.
Go ahead.
This paper we get, this multi saying it causes cancer.
You're not getting that water, Terry, at all.
We're not.
Well, I don't want to drink the water.
It's blended.
For you at home, you're not getting that water.
I do not believe that you're telling me that it doesn't cause cancer. I don't care, all the chemicals you put in there isn't good for your body, okay? Wait a second. And you are clear drinking your water, okay? You've been, excuse me, Mayor, you've been doing it for how long now? Trying to get clean water, you're saying?
Long time.
For a long time, right? So, we wasted $3 million on this project, correct?
Right.
You know, it's always easy to look back. We did the best we thought we could do with the money, and everybody said it was gonna work. DEC, DOH, are the hydrologists that we hired, the consulting firms. It's, you know, I understand what you're saying, but, you know, it's like, it's easy to make fun after a decision's made.
I'm not making fun at all.
I'm saying, I'm just trying to say, we did everything that we thought was the best way to get clear water. And it was to get out of the open source range from
Which
lakes
is
and
the
ponds,
lake,
to come from wells. And we did everything they said to do. And things were good for 18 months.
I
And
don't
then we
believe they were good for that long because we were told to leave our faucets open and I am telling you, barnacles and sand were coming out of the
started-
tubs
Yeah, and
at the beginning and just.
Cindy, I hear you, but the problem is, when we shifted from the lake to the wells, it was a reverse flow. Now think about this, these pipes are 80 years old or 90 years old, water's been going this way for 90 years. All of a sudden it's coming this way. That's why there was particles, and that's why when we first started, we said let the water run.
Why don't you replace the pipes instead of building the old
Because we
WB?
couldn't afford it, that's why.
Get these guys to help us out.
Because they.
You're talking millions and millions of dollars. I mean a lot more than this. So, go ahead.
My
Yes,
question
ma'am.
was, it's a kind of a moot point now, where you have all these specialists, and you went from the lake to the wells, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so you went from the lake to the wells, but you say the wells weren't even producing enough water for the community, so you have to mix and blend with them anyway.
with little Simon, yes, a small
So
amount.
where were the specialists to determine and make the numbers as to how much water was needed, and the wells weren't gonna produce enough water
We're not saying,
in the first place? After you spend $3 million of our taxpayer money on it, and I guess it's kind of a moot point now, whatever, 6, 8, what do we have to do, that we can't even use? And it's, like I say, it's a moot point, so you might as well just drop it, because you obviously know we're all ticked.
I
But beyond
understand
that, I do, and I
I'm not-
understand that
you think
too.
I'm happy
I know
about
you're
it?
with us, I get it.
I'm
You're
not happy
frustrated
about it.
too, because you're listening to us. But my point now, so what is our ETA? Mary's over there saying we're at 2 years because of all the filing process, because we all love you, we all.
that's
know
why
it
we
works.
have these two gentlemen here who are gonna work with us and the health department to expedite the sampling testings that we have to do to make sure we get the right plant on the lake, to expedite the contracting process, and to expedite the actual building of this plant. That's why, I mean, I want money from them too, but that's the main thing, expedites the word.
Okay, so let's just, for instance.
Yes.
We get the money in 3 months. When's the reality of some decent water?
I don't have an exact answer, I really don't know how long the construction would take. It would be sometime at the Maddox Lane facility. they have to take everything out of there
So it's
and
gonna be at least
replant the
another
thing?
year probably.
I would say yes. That would, a year would not.
I know, that's why I'm saying at the
It will
least,
be much more
more
than a year.
year.
You know, so we're gonna try that.
You know it's not gonna come in 3 months, and then there's construction.
Why are we becoming a joke? So what are you gonna do in the meantime for them? Where's the water gonna come from?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, I think that's why the phosphorus is being evaluated. I mean,
But there's another
there's other options. I mean, we could certainly put in temporary filtration. The problem with temporary filtration is that gets to be expensive as well. And
What
so,
about us, we're putting it in our houses?
I understand. I guess my point is that, you know, we're looking at options to limit the iron in the water in the interim until we are able to get the Tupper Lake
Well, I'll
plant.
tell you what I'm looking at, and I may only be here a few more months, but the plan is to see what this phosphorus will do. If this phosphorus is healthy, and it will correct the iron issue for the temporary time being, we do that for the well water. We continue to draw a little bit of water from Little Simon Pond, and we expedite the process of building that plant. If the phosphorus doesn't work, then we will have to look at temporary iron extractors, which are very expensive, but you wouldn't have groundwater, you'd have clear water from the wells, and maybe that's what we're gonna have to do.
Still
But
cancer
Can you
causing
explain?
agents. So what, there's no brown water, your phosphorus is gonna get rid of the color in the water. What about all these chemicals that are causing cancer?
The chemicals that are causing cancer don't come from the wells, they come from the open source lake when we put chlorine in to take care of the bacteria from surface water. That's why we went to the wells.
Doesn't make sense.
But now you're going to go back to the lake.
No, when we go back to the lake, we're gonna have a filtration plant that will be able to correct the chlorine problem.
Until then, you can still drink the cancerous water.
No, we're not getting it.
Listen, there's not many places in this state that don't use chlorine or open source.
I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying the
And you're drinking that
byproducts
water.
of chlorine or chlorine.
And I've drank it for 71 years and I'm still alive.
And if you want to go right down to it, where was the DOH when we were getting, I'm a recent resident.
Yes, I know.
When we were getting the notices I just gave Assemblyman Jones, where was the DOH? When those were not passing standard about trying to address the problem then. You said it's been going on for years. Now you're gonna rely on the Department of Health to make a decision.
They've been going out a long time. DOH pushed the well
I know
to
that.
eliminate that byproduct issue. They were involved right from the beginning.
In order to get funding for those funding to address the problem, which was actually the carcinogenic agents,
Right.
could you get the money for the plant, or were you pushed into this underground system of the wells?
We had a choice.
You had a choice.
Yes.
We actually
What
didn't.
better resources do you have in this area in the Adirondacks is surface water. Number two, Adirondack Mountains. Mountains, iron. There's iron in these mountains. I can't believe an engineering group would even consider putting those where they did. Now, you made a decision. We make bad decisions, everybody does.
It wasn't a bad decision
I
at the
know.
time.
Well, I think it was, since you have.
You weren't here then, so you
Iron
didn't
in the
decide
mountains,
it.
Iron Mountain. I mean, really? I mean, that's pretty simple.
When your wells are at the bottom of Iron Mountain, you get
Who
iron.
wants to come up and speak next?
Oh, we can't speak from here, we have to go stand up.
The microphone doesn't work, by the way.
The microphone doesn't work.
Listen, I'm not arguing with you, I'm just telling you why the decision was made. Open source water needs to be treated with chlorine because there are contaminants on open source water. Maybe you don't agree with it, but everybody else in the state does. Maybe everybody else is wrong and you're right. But let's assume that state's right. We went to the wells because we wouldn't have to treat it with chlorine.
This is not the only community that's dealt with this problem.
I know that.
Back where I come from, yeah, They had the same problem there. What did they do? Underground sourcing from the state? They have lakes back in the Finger Lakes. And what they did was build a new microfiltration plant because they were smart enough to do that.
That's good for them.
Why can't we do that?
Well, actually,
From when? When?
I got it, Mark. Didn't we have a choice at the
We could
time?
only get funding for groundwater at that
So
time.
we would only get funding to
They
drill a
didn't
well.
want to
Oh,
go back
that's
to the
right.
lake. They did not want to go back to the lake. They didn't want the byproduct fishing again.
Who was
So
they?
here, listen, I want to address,
Go ahead.
I've been sitting here, here's my problem with this whole situation. We have a problem, we're all aware of it. My issue is, this needs to be taken care of quickly. We shouldn't be trying to get funding to fix this problem. The state should be writing a blank check for this problem.
We need clean water.
I sit here and I listen to how we're struggling to get funding to fix this. The state of New York writes blank checks to Orta and Lake Placid for hundreds of millions of dollars. All we're asking for as a village is, as you are representatives, Billy and Dan, I really appreciate you coming tonight. This needs to be streamlined. It needs to be paid for in full. This should not cost this community a single dime. This is an emergency. And I can tell you right now, just knowing what I know and talking with Mark and everything that's going on, if we allow this to go through the process, we're not looking at 6 months, 8 months, a year. We're probably looking at a minimum of 3 to 4 years before that filtration is online.
Before we can
Am
have
I
clean
wrong
water.
on that? If it goes through normal channels.
it's gonna be several years before it's.
Yeah.
So why, as a state, why don't the state of New York step up to the plate? And that's what I'm asking Billy and Dan, you're our representatives. Take this back to the government. This should be a no-brainer. We have an issue here. This should be addressed immediately, not put on a back burner. I'm sorry. I'm here, I'm a village trustee, I'm trying to represent the taxpayers. I feel their pain. I look at the pictures of that water. I read a letter from DOH that was sent to one of the people that asked these questions, and the letter said, the water's fine to drink. Would any one of you guys sitting up there bathe their kids in that, drink that water? Any of you?
No.
If I bring that water up here, would anybody drink that like it?
Yellow water.
This should be streamlined. I'm sorry, that's where I stand on it. I mean, we can talk about it all night. The problem's here. It needs to be taken care of. Thank you.
Let's hear it. Who else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Val DeGrace. I live at 4 Lake Ridge, and I gave you a sample in a Ziploc bag of what I clean out from my faucet. Can you please pass that down? And can you please also pass down the pictures so everyone has a chance to get This is what we're living with, okay? It's a reality. 12 years ago, I moved to Rock Ridge, and I filled up the tub for, I had a little kid coming to visit, filled up the tub. Tub was yellow. So I said to my husband, why would it be yellow? His cousin works on the water department, so his cousin was kind enough to come up, drain it out, flush like they flush. And we thought 12 years ago, when we mentioned this, something would be done. The past year or so, every once in a while, when I clean my faucets, and that's what's under my faucets in that Ziploc bag, if I don't clean it, I'm drinking that. It's particles, it's sediment, it looks like mold or moss. We need water. I filter my water. We were filtration system for our house. But then I was like, we pay for water. Why should I have to put in a water system? And people that do have water systems, they break down. They're ruined within months. Their filters are filthy. We just want clean water. I can't even give my grandkids a bath. I want to drink clean water, not have to pay for water that I'm already paying for. So I understand it's gonna take time, but in the meantime, we need fresh, clean water. We can't wait 3 years. Thank you.
Yes, anyone else?
Yes, I'd just like to say, as a homeowner and a taxpayer in this town, I'm a pretty civil person. I thought the first make a request, but I think on behalf of the citizens of this town, it needs to be demanded. We need to have someone from the federal level come up here, test our water thoroughly, and verify in a public forum what's going on with these chemicals. My next demand would be, you get up here with the water truck starting Monday down at Ames Shopping Plaza, and you start giving people free bottled water. Just like we do after a hurricane. This is a disaster. And my third request is, you can't solve this quick, give us all water filters, and not cheap stuff. We gotta filter our water. That's all I've got to say.
I think that the senator and the assemblyman know the issue, health department knows the issue, our engineers.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So a lot is being focused on the color and the iron, and that's, I'm sure, curable, but I think that it's being missed, that the lake water and the carcinogens and the what we're being added to that water is still an issue, even if we add the phosphorus. The phosphorus is a short-term solution, is not a short-term solution for the lake water. So I still feel like bottled water should be provided to the community. And you mentioned that that's a normal thing, that you have to add those things to water.
Correct.
But I'd like to ask Department of Health, these letters that we fail these quality tests, is that typical? Do most communities fail those quality tests as frequently as Tupper Lake does?
No, I'm not going to speak outside of my expertise. I do not send the letters myself. I only review the designs to help fix the issues described in the letters. Typically, once the community's issued a letter of notice of violation, we figure out rapidly with the town, the engineer, and our office on how to find the solution as quick as possible. It is my understanding that the water from the wells are blended with such low amounts from Little Simon Pond that disinfection byproducts, those carcinogens that you mentioned, are not a concern from that water source. It is just the iron, which is, as you know, extremely unwanted, but that is not.
Then why do we still fail the test every quarter?
You get letters.
I
every
would need to get
4
back to you
months.
on that. I need to go into further detail or further research on my end and just figure out what exactly those letters are, what source of water those letters are relevant to. I apologize, I don't have the answer for it now, but I will get
And
that
I'd
for
like
you.
to echo Eric's sentiments that I think it's insane that in our state we spend millions of dollars on the rail rehab, the rail trail, Florida. Not saying that those things do not deserve funding, but water should be the #1 priority in our state. We shouldn't be asking for money, we shouldn't be fighting for money. It should just be, this is what's gonna happen.
Right.
Jim Page. I've been a forester for 37 years. And when I'm out marking it, I used to mark timber and do it like we do now, cut everything. But I tried to avoid the swamps when I was marking the timber, mainly because my clothes, my boots, everything stunk like hell when you walk in the swamp. So how are you gonna get clean water when you're drilling your wells in the swamp? Water goes down. You make a hole and it goes down. And I don't know much about curing water problems, but I know in big cities they seem to use fluoride. I don't know why we don't.
Thank you. We're going to be meeting with the health department next week. The regional rep isn't here tonight. I mean Marlene Smith. Marlene Martin. We're going to meet with her next week. We're going to talk to Dan and Bill after this meeting and see what we can do to get water, see what we can do to expedite this process, try and get answers for you regarding the phosphorus and what other people outside of the health department say, and try and move everything along as fast as we can. I don't know, anybody on the table want to say anything else? It's
know the issue now.
So this is a state of emergency right now in this town. So nobody up there can give us an answer that the state is gonna do anything for us. So when we walk out of here tonight, we don't know if we're gonna have fresh bottled water or drinking water. We have to wait a week. Nobody up there can give us that answer right now.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
I know.
Dean Lorraine from the Junction. Thanks for coming. I bleed my tank every morning, basically, my hot water tank, and it comes out orange. I'm trying to save my hot water tank. I don't want to buy a new one every 6 months, so that's what I do when it comes out orange every morning. Is there any way to go back on the engineers that said drill these wells, we're gonna have much water, we're gonna have more water than we can have? Any way to go back on them to get some money back? Because we put a lot of money into that. I mean, once they started pumping out of the well, Pitchfork Pond went down to nothing. I mean, it probably went down 3 feet. So it's drawing out of that pond. So, I mean,
You can look at it.
I mean, the pond was down big time, and that pond has never been down.
I've taken pictures of it with the boat in the bottom of the lake showing.
Yeah.
Just like Lake Mead.
Yep. And, I mean, my wife is too happy with her laundry every day. I hear about that every day. It's gonna go through, I mean, we should get a new washer, but I can't afford that. I mean, all our appliances are gonna have to be replaced. I mean, everybody down the junction, if they bled their tank, you wouldn't believe what would come out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is bad.
Change the filter monthly.
Yeah, and I put a whole filter in also, and within a week, that is orange. So I gotta replace the filter every couple of weeks, basically. It's really bad. Thank you.
Keep giving that money to the Buffalo Stadium and immigrants and everything, so the water.
You guys know anything? Listen, thank you all for coming. The reason I said that to you is I don't want to lie to you and say I've got an answer, because I don't. Neither does anybody up here. We're gonna work.
Isn't it a state law that if there's an emergency with drinking water, that it's an immediate thing that they have to take care of? Like,
Technically, per the technicalities of the TOH, it is not an emergency.
I wish somebody would have brought a glass of water.
Well, the head of the village water department will drink it, you just can't do your laundry or it ruins everything in the house.
You don't see he's wearing any white t-shirts.
Right? I brought it, so you drink it
I
first.
did drink it, I drank it in front of you, I did.
Yes, no big deal. Okay, fine, drink your dirty water, but you can't do laundry, you can't, it's ruining everything. Why do you, it's just terrible.
Do your kids drink that water?
They do, Jill.
That's, why would you let them drink that water?
Okay, folks? Yes, sir. Last comment.
One more.
Go ahead.
That's important.
Go ahead.
I moved here in 1973. Water was pretty good. I lived across from the water tank uptown. Population was over 7,000, almost 8. Now it's 3,000. There's inflation been going on big time. And we're not people to pay for all these changes that we had, even at the prices that they were in 1973.
Do we still
We're
have the two
poor
water
people
tanks?
here.
What's that?
I said, we're poor people here, nobody's millionaires around here, we can't afford to replace these appliances or water filters. And
Okay.
you know that, Mr. Monroe.
Yes, sir.
I'm out of here.
Every person probably in this room has to buy water. And they know now that we need it, now the prices have been jacked up constantly. Is there anything that can be done about this? Like they did in Flint?
You can talk to, get the Attorney General to look at it. You're talking about water gouging.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. These folks know what the issue is.